Sabah khair, I guess, or good morning. Thank you for having me. Some quick, I'm going to attempt to, by the way, run a 40-minute presentation in 10 minutes. So I've never done this before. So we're going to go quickly here. Hopefully this is very informative. I think the future, everybody believes broadband to be in mobile. I'm going to talk about innovation, specifically on the ground level, some applications that are developing that are going to help set regulations for the future. So a little background on myself. I've been a mobile entrepreneur for my whole career, short career, about 12 years as an investor and an entrepreneur. Started 4 mobile startups, was lucky to be part of the early team at a company called AdMob. That was one of the largest mobile advertising networks acquired by Google a couple years ago for $750 million. Also Gray Stripe, a few other companies up here that you'll see soon, I think. One, for example, called Breezy Print. You can actually look for a print a document from your mobile device. It will print to the nearest printer near you, whether it's at a FedEx, Kinko's, or public university, or somebody's office, for example. So there's a lot of innovation happening. Here, a smattering of startups. So I think the most important thing to note is, can you imagine living without your mobile device? When I give this talk, I often ask for a show of hands of how many people actually keep their phone literally without or farther than 5 feet away from them at any point of the day. And nobody raises their hand. Everybody has their phone close to them, whether you're in the bathroom or whether you're even in the shower, it's right there, right? There's no other part of your body that you carry. Even your hair you can lose after time, like I am, but your phone is always with you, right? So that's pretty amazing. You guys are probably familiar with some of these statistics. Almost 7 billion people in the world today, over 5 billion mobile subscriptions. I know Qatar, for example, has over-penetration. I learned this morning, 2 million handsets for a population of 1.7. The US is almost 1-to-1. I think where we're seeing a lot of development and a lot of growth, obviously in China and in India. India is poised to become the first country with 1 billion cell phone subscriptions. China's in the lead, but India's growth rate is much higher. It's pretty amazing. In India, for example, 500 million users are sending text messages every single day. I think the biggest driver from growth, here are some of them today, and my panelists mentioned a lot of sort of the regulations that are being put into effect. But I think more than anything, it's consumer behavior, right? Users are actually using their device for more than just phone calls. They're finally using their device for text messaging, for email, for applications. And that's what's really driving a significant amount of growth. Now, in terms of media consumption, mobile is about to pass the television. This is not just from a phone call perspective either. This is from apps and email. That's pretty significant, right? Just from a marketing perspective, last year there were roughly about $500 billion being spent in the US market on advertising. About 60% of that, $300 billion, was television. Now imagine a large part of those budgets now going into mobile for advertising and marketing. It's just starting to happen. Everybody says sort of mobile is another channel. We always have spoken about mobile as an extension of every channel. You may have seen QR codes on billboards, NFC that's starting to emerge. They make every media interactive, whether it's a short code on television or on radio, a QR code in your newspaper that you can just put your camera phone over and launch an interactive experience. Some of the sort of fun graphs, and by the way, feel free to email me after this presentation to get a copy. In the US, obviously, text messaging was slow to take off, largely because of the many different protocols being used by the different carriers. AT&T, GSM or TDMA, Sprint, Verizon, CDMA. 10 years ago, if you had a Sprint phone, for example, you could not send a text message to a Verizon phone. Right? Today, even with MMS, if you take a picture on a T-Mobile phone, you cannot send it to a Verizon phone. Right? So there's still interoperability issues. But once they're being sorted, we're starting to see a huge driver in growth. Here's an interesting statistic just in the United States. guess how many text messages the average teenager sends, meaning 13 to 19, on a monthly basis. It's over 3,000. That's 100 a day. They're no longer sending emails. They're certainly not talking to you on the phone, but they're sending text messages and using Facebook. That's contributing to a lot of this growth. Worldwide, we estimate almost 10 trillion text messages being sent in 2011. One thing that's very interesting is mobile internet is about to surpass desktop internet very soon. That means there's more internet access for mobile devices globally than from your PC. That's a pretty big deal. Mobile social networking is also one of the key drivers of growth. So Facebook, for example, has 500 million active users a month, of which 200 million access Facebook through their mobile device. Mobile content is largely driven today still by, we call it snackable content. So not surprising, weather, search, news, maps, and sports are the top categories. I mentioned mobile internet growth, passing desktop internet. You know, this is driven by factors such as, tablet consumption, for example, is one of the big drivers to this growth. Some interesting new trends. If you've used any of these applications like Shazam or Spotify for music, group texting, so you can now text to everybody and many friends at one time, whether you're on platforms like Fast Society, GroupMe, Text Plus. I've used Foursquare a few times since I've been in Qatar. It's maybe starting to take off, but the ability to actually check in and publicly post your location. And you can do that obviously on Facebook and Twitter, but there's many apps, Whirl, Foursquare, GoWalla, Loops. In the United States, in particular, right now, smartphones are about 25% of the market, and a year from now, it'll be about 50%. 25% is roughly the global standard as well for smartphone penetration. But a lot of this penetration is really going to be driven by Android. So I know here in Qatar, about 80% is still Nokia, but Android is now, as of last quarter, the fastest growing smartphone operating system. Because it's open source, it's going to be very efficient and cost effective for other OEMs to add it to their handsets, and we're going to start, I think, seeing a lot of disruption with regard to Android happening globally. So some trends, I mentioned, this is the last slide, some things that we're seeing in the future. So much like you had software sort of downloadable to your PC and now everything is web-based, for example, Google Apps is a great example of that. We're seeing that in mobile as well. So HTML5 will be a new standard where everything is browser-based on your device. You no longer may need to download apps. You can just type in where you're going right from the mobile browser. NFC, so Google has a big initiative this summer actually in the United States where they're replacing the point-of-sale systems at retailers with NFC-enabled point-of-sale, which what that means is you'll be able to just tap your phone when you check out of a grocery store or at a bar, for example, and it's billed to your device. You can get special offers and redemption, but it's all going to be right here very soon. I think NFC is the standard that everybody's waiting for. Mobile health is also one of the big drivers for innovation. Sort of the President Barack Obama's vision is to have a doctor's appointment right on your iPad. Why sit in a waiting room and wait for the doctor to come, schedule an appointment when you can right then and there have a quick interview before you need to go into a specialist. I mentioned very soon 50% of the world's population will have smartphones. This is a very big deal. Right now it's about 25%. But in about a year and a half to 2 years, half of the world will be on smart devices. We're no longer just making phone calls or sending text messages. We're doing much more than that. It's going to be a fascinating decade, so thank you for having me. Cheers.